Kameron Feggins is an education specialist at the National Aquarium. She's also a graduate of Morgan State University with a degree in family and consumer sciences. Thank you so much for being with us. And we're really looking forward to seeing the National Aquarium for the next half hour.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can see you too.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for allowing me to be here. And today I'm going to be giving you a live look at three of our major exhibits. We're going to be looking at our Atlantic Coral Reef, our Shark Alley exhibit, and then our underwater viewing exhibit for our Blacktip Reef. So first, we're going to start with our Atlantic Coral Reef, and to give you guys a nice look of what's going on. And this is just the first part. And we have like a lot of different fish. So swimming by, you'll see a myriad of different fish. We have four-eyed butterfly fish, spot and butterfly fish, spot fin porcupine fish. We have a bonnet head shark, southern stingrays, and cone nose rays. And our Atlantic coral reef is completely designed to imitate the Atlantic coral reef that is actually in the ocean. So I know a lot of you guys see the coral that we have here, and it looks amazing, but a lot of this is not actually real coral. It's been, it has been actually fabricated by our designs team, our designs and exhibits team. So right now, we have a lot of our different, I'm sorry if you guys can't really hear me. There's a lot of guests in here today. But even floating by, we have some Atlantic spadefish. And we have a lot of different fish that are going by. And as I go forward, if anyone has any questions, can you just put them in the chat and I'll definitely respond. So as we're gonna go along, we're gonna be looking at some more of the fish and look at some of the patterns. So for some of these bigger fish that you guys are seeing right now, I don't know if you can see it, but there are smaller fish who usually latch onto them. And this is for a reason. It's for them to complete a job of actually cleaning that fish and getting anything off of that fish to keep it clean and getting its meals. So we also have a little bit higher, we have some Atlantic look down fish, which for their name, they like to look down. And their job, well, they don't really have a specific job, but Atlantic look down fish are really special because they glow with kind of like a silverish tint and they swim around and they live up to their name. And here we actually have some of our divers. And what they do is kind of clean the tanks and feed the fish regularly. So as we're going by, this is the way they kind of try to set up the coral and the exhibits is to imitate living habitats for our fish. And can you guys still see, because my internet is kind of cutting out a little bit?
Yeah, Cameron, you look good.
Yeah. And now I'm going to actually pause for a little bit to take some questions. Well, yeah, just to take a little bit, some questions and see what's in the chat before we move down to our Shark Alley exhibit.
Yeah, it looks like there are a couple of questions about the different species of fish that you have there and total number, and then also about the coral reefs that you have there, if they're real or fake.
Okay. There are no real coral reefs in our exhibits because coral is something that is very hard to maintain and to keep alive. So it's much easier for us to fabricate our coral and put it in our exhibits instead of trying to actually maintain and keep coral alive.
Yeah, for perspective, guys, in order to have coral of that size would need about stadium-sized lights. So it'd be very, very bright and you probably couldn't even see the animals in the first place. coral is very delicate and requires a lot of work to keep alive. So the places that we do have live coral are very, very small exhibits, and it's a small amount of live coral that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Molly.
I'm sorry, guys, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Molly Flowers. I'm also an education specialist at the aquarium.
So right now, I'm actually heading down to our Shark Alley exhibit to show you guys some more species that we have, some of our shark species that we actually have here on exhibit at the aquarium.
Cameron, there was also another good question. Are we aware of any active research being done at the aquarium? And I can speak to that one a little bit. Yes, there definitely is. We have some horseshoe crabs upstairs that are part of an active research coalition. So people come in and study them. Horseshoe crabs are very, very interesting animal. I'd love for you guys to take the time to Google horseshoe crabs a little bit. I understand that most of you guys are on the West Coast, but they're an East Coast species, Atlantic horseshoe crabs that we have. And their blood is used, it has a very specific, it almost forms like a clot or a coagulation in the presence of toxins from bacteria. So it's really important for medical research to test and see if different products are sterile enough and clean enough, or there's been any contamination throughout the process of manufacturing. So currently, you can't keep captive horseshoe crabs because there's a fungus that grows on them and have their blood be used for that important medical research. So I believe that's related to the horseshoe crabs, to the research being done on them. But we participate in lots of different studies in that all throughout the aquarium. That's just one specific example. A lot of our aquarists are actually published authors, which is really cool.
Thank you, Ms. Molly. And right now, I'm actually down in our Shark Alley exhibit. And the first thing I have to show you guys is actually not a shark, but we have it here on exhibit, and it's our large tooth sawfish. And our large tooth sawfish is more closely related to stingrays. It's more commonly found in the ray family. And if you guys can see, it has that very, very long nose with those ridges at the end, and that's what it uses to use in the wild to go down to the bottom and kind of shift up and see can it find anything to eat, and then it'll go eat it. So I'm gonna continue to walk around and see, excuse me, can I find, excuse me.
And you guys will definitely notice as it's a little bit tough to see with that exhibit because it's a little bit on the darker side. On the topic of exhibit design, these are more Atlantic Ocean species. So the rocks that you're going to see are kind of going to be minimal. The coral that you're going to see is a little bit more minimal. And that darker color is going to create an ambiance. So it gives it that real environment and makes you think that you're really kind of around those animals and that you're in the water with them. And it can even highlight them a little bit better in that way. That's pretty cool. We also have a question coming in. Why aren't in any aquariums there big sharks like mako sharks, tiger sharks, or white sharks? So the largest species of shark is something called a whale shark, and they get to be about the size of a school bus. And there are aquariums that do have whale sharks. As far as tiger sharks and white sharks and mako sharks, I'm not sure specifically about mako sharks. There are tiger sharks in aquariums. I believe the Georgia Aquarium is opening up an exhibit with tiger sharks in it. White sharks, great white sharks, are a lot of work. They need really, really big and vast sort of sections of water. So that requires a lot of energy on our part to have. So usually it kind of benefits us more to have more sharks in a little bit of a closer area so that people can see them better. And instead, we don't have to worry about having all of that water specifically just for one shark. Great white sharks are also very active predators. They're used to not finding very much prey. So usually when they see other animals, they're a little bit more of active hunters. So that means it's a little bit more difficult for us to keep them in exhibits with other animals, but it also means it could potentially pose a danger to the people taking care of them. But as you'll see in a second, the sand tiger sharks that we have in there, they're a local species for us that can be found off the Maryland seashore. They're very, very docile. They're very common. I don't believe there are any recorded sand tiger shark bites at all, even though they live in the exact same waters that I played in when I was a child. Mr. Cameron, are you still there? We can't currently see any video.
Yeah, I'm still here, Miss Molly. It's
Okay.
just a little hard to move between all the guests and all. But coming up, just as you were talking about, we have a sand tiger shark. Just waiting for it to peek its head out a little bit. And here we go. So just like Miss Molly was saying, this is one of our sand tiger sharks. And it is very docile. And I don't know if you guys can see, but it has those very sharp teeth kind of poking out of its mouth. It's a very slow swimmer. It's just kind of going along, minding its business. And coming up should be one of the nurse sharks as well, or sandbar sharks.
We also have a question coming in about the laws of what organisms are allowed to be in the aquarium. There are definitely laws about that kind of stuff. The Marine Mammal Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, it controls like what we're allowed to go out and take from the ocean. A lot of our animals are either from zoos and aquariums. There's also animals that we actively collect from waters all around. There's even some that we're able to source from more private pet trades because they're popular pets, so it's just as easy for us to get them there. So we have to be mindful of those kinds of laws. For the most part, a lot of the animals that we have aren't actually endangered, so it's not really something that we need to worry about. And as long as they're kept within zoos and aquariums, we don't normally have to worry about that too much. But yes, there's definitely laws. Like we used to have a chambered nautilus, but we're not allowed to have chambered nautilus anymore because there's never been any breeding in captivity of chambered nautilus based on just how their anatomy works and how their spawning works. It's not very conducive for zoos and aquariums. And since they entered onto the endangered species list, that means that we can't collect them. So you're never going to see a chambered nautilus again in zoos and aquariums, that kind of stuff.
So thank you, Miss Molly, again. Always helping us with our questions. Right here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but kind of laying there is one of our nurse sharks. And usually when we think about sharks, they kind of have to always be swimming around to get air, to get water into their gills so that they can live. But nurse sharks actually are able to stay in one place and kind of lay down. And they're just kind of like our sand tiger shark that we talked about earlier. They're very docile, they're very relaxed. And I think it's actually moving a little bit. And
Yeah, somebody just asked a question that they heard that sharks never stop swimming even when they sleep, and if that was true. So that's kind of a two-parter question there. So there are some species of sharks that never stop moving. In that exhibit there, you're going to find sandbar sharks. You might see them, might not. They're a little bit quicker, so it's tough to catch on the tablet. Blacktip reef sharks that you guys are going to see they do need, I believe what the word is called is obligate ram. So they do need to keep swimming in order to breathe. Animals like sand tiger sharks, those bigger ones that Mr. Cameron showed you, and nurse sharks, they have special musculature that they can pump water through their gills, and they can stop, and it's not a big deal. They can still breathe, and they can literally actively pump their gills. So some of them you will see resting on the bottom. Even though sand tiger sharks can stop, I've never seen a sand tiger shark stop. So I might have seen them pause in the water, but we don't necessarily see them really kind of resting like that. The other part of that question is, do sharks sleep? And the answer is not really, and we don't really know. So sleep is this very weird, complex topic that we're still learning so much about, even with humans. With sharks, we believe that they might rest, like have periods of rest, but they never really fully go to sleep. Some animals, like dolphins, will sleep with half of their brain at one time. So it just kind of depends. Yeah. And then we also have a question coming in about the guest experience. So somebody was asking me if we do have guests right now at the aquarium. And oh yeah, we definitely do. That's the people that you're hearing in the background with Mr. Cameron. And you might even see some people walking in front of the camera every now and then. We're at a limited capacity, so we don't have our full numbers fully open up. We have our touch pools closed, and everything's on a one-way flow, so you can't circle back and revisit other places. But we're definitely still open to people. And we were closed for a little bit, but we opened back up in July.
Thank you, Miss Molly. And now I'm down here at our black tip reef exhibit, which is meant to kind of replicate an Indo-Pacific reef. And we're seeing some of our black tip sharks, black tip reef sharks kind of float on by. And as Miss Molly said, they like to move around when you guys ask that question of the sharks have to continuously be moving. And yes, as you guys can see, just like she said, they're moving around a whole lot. And a big difference between these sharks and the other sharks that we're seeing, our black tip reef sharks are a very social creature. So it's not uncommon to see them swimming along with each other, because in the wild they do the same thing and they tend to hunt in packs. But other than our sharks, we have a myriad of different species out here. We have many rays. Excuse me.
Yeah, in that exhibit, you guys won't see all of them, but there's actually 80 different species of animals in there. And about, I think the last count was 800 individual animals. We've got a lot of little fish in there that are actually breeding. You can also see in there, Mr. Cameron has a good look of a zebra shark that's resting on the bottom. The head of the zebra shark, that's Zeke, our male zebra shark, and zebra sharks are actually an endangered species.
So I'm gonna try to get a look at the rays, Miss Molly.
Okay, and while you're doing that, we also had a question come in about, can marine animals get COVID? The short answer is we're not exactly sure. I don't think they can. Mammals can. Some mammals, it's possible that they can get the coronavirus, unfortunately. So if you see videos where there's marine mammal trainers and they are wearing masks around like a seal, even though there's nobody else around, they're doing that to prevent the spread of disease to their animals. So that's definitely something that we consider for the marine mammals. Specifically, we close our touch pools because since COVID is spread through kind of droplets, it's not safe for everybody to be putting their hands into water and then people after them putting their hands into the same water. And it's also very difficult to distance staff in that space to keep a good solid 6 feet while the touch pools are open. So that's part of the reason that that instance is closed.
Thank you again, Miss Molly. Right now, I actually went up top so I can give you guys a better look at the black tip reef exhibit from the actual bird's eye view. And right here we have a blotched tail fan ray, if I'm not mistaken. And we have some more looks at these black tip reef sharks kind of going by. And just like Ms. Molly said, it's a lot of different species in here swimming around and all kind of coexisting with each other. I want to get a better look at some more of where the rays go.
Somebody was also asking how much space is there in the entire aquarium. Overall, I believe we have a total of 3 million gallons, I think is what we have. 1.3 million of that is in our dolphin discovery exhibit. So there was somebody also asking what the biggest and smallest marine animal is at the National Aquarium. I'd have to say the dolphins by weight are probably our biggest. Our big boy Bo is, I think he's over 800 pounds right now at our last weigh-in, and he'd probably be the biggest by weight. Zeke the zebra shark is probably going to be the longest. And if you're talking the smallest, I'd have to say that's actually some of the food that we grow. So we raise baby brine shrimp, also known as sea monkeys, and they're very, 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 very tiny. We feed our jellies with them. So that would probably be the smallest thing that we have. Somebody else was asking if we're able to touch these animals outside of COVID-19. So we have specific touch exhibits that you can touch the animals in. So normally, yes, but blacktip reef is not one of those exhibits. We do have divers that go in, but our divers are either staff divers or they're trained volunteer divers. So when they go in, they're not necessarily going through and petting the animals, but they are going through and feeding them. They're even giving sand and gravel baths to the animals. So what they can do is they can pick up a handful of that gravel at the bottom and they kind of sprinkle it over the fish, and the fish use that as a chance to like brush any extra little scales that are ready to fall off. And they kind of treat it like a little gravel shower, like we would treat a shower. So that can be really fun and cute to watch. If I can say, it's absolutely adorable. Somebody else was asking if the rays can sting us and if they're deadly. So these rays are not really something that we need to worry about. Rays will only use their barb not as a hunting mechanism, but as a self-defense mechanism in life or death situations. So they don't really feel threatened by us in that exhibit. Even our touch pool rays don't feel threatened by that. And it's not something that we need to worry about. In the wrong spot in your body, a ray's barb could be deadly. So it's definitely something that we think about. We can actually physically trim their barbs if we need to. It looks a lot like a giant fingernail clipper because their barbs are made out of the same stuff as our fingernails. They're made of keratin, and we can trim it down and it'll grow back. So that's kind of cool. Somebody else was asking if we give our sharks or rays names. It depends on the sharks and the rays, and it depends on the person taking care of them. A lot of the animals will have nicknames. So I don't know all the rays in blacktip reef. I know that I think it was the blotched fantail ray. I think his name is Pepe. The blacktip reef sharks, we can't tell them apart. The aquarist that takes care of them can, but I can't just glance at them and tell them apart. Each of their black tips is unique as a fingerprint, but other than that, they all look the same to me. Some of the animals do have nicknames. It really just depends on the person and who's taking care of them, if they do. Mr. Cameron, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything else to add. We can have a last go about for questions. I'm just glad that I could show you guys our wonderful exhibits here at the National Aquarium and a lot of the different species that we house in them.
Thank you both so much for your presentation. This has been absolutely incredible. I think I speak for most people in that, people haven't been going out during COVID, haven't been able to experience this. And so having this point of view to really go through this and ask you guys questions has been so enriching. And so thank you both so much for your time. I think we have about 4 minutes left for questions. And so maybe I'll just start it off. And if we have others as we're talking, feel free to put them into the chat. Are there any exhibits within the aquarium that are being used for rehabilitation, or any of these planned for release, or is it more just aquarium for education?
Oh, so that's a really good question. So currently our animals that are being rehabilitated, we always, when we rescue and respond to rescues and we try to rehabilitate animals for whatever reason, whether it's boat strikes or whether it's something else, we always aim to release. That's always the intention with our animals. Um, so our animal rescue is primarily focused on two topics. One is local seals. So we might have gray seals, harbor seals, that kind of thing that you find off the Maryland seashore. We also have sea turtles. So we have a seal who's under our care, and she's been under our care for a while. I think she broke a record for how long she's been under our care, with the intention to still release. So some animals will end up being deemed non-releasable. Either they can't hunt for themselves, they can't find shelter for themselves, those kinds of scenarios. If they are deemed non-releasable, they will spend the rest of their lives in zoos and aquariums. Pippi, that's her name, Pippi Longstockings, is the seal that we currently have. She's recovering from a surgery in her ear canal. I believe she had a deep infection. And because there's so much blubber around that head, it's actually a really difficult surgery and takes a long time for them to recover. So she's in the process of recovering, but we're hoping that she's going to be released soon. So fingers crossed with that one. Every year we take about 2 to 3 seals in, and always with the hope to release. A lot of times it's also maternal abandonment. The mom will abandon the seal a little bit too early and they just can't survive quite yet. We also take in about 30 to 40 sea turtles every single year. So all 7 species of sea turtles are either endangered or their numbers are currently threatened. So there's specific legislature and laws that are out to protect sea turtles. So one of the things that we do is we help rehabilitate and release sea turtles as much as we can. Usually the sea turtles that we have are about the size of a dinner plate. They're not huge. They're still little babies and they're less than 5 years old. For comparison, leatherback sea turtles can get to be about 8 feet long. So we have to be a little bit choosy about who we have. Right now, we just got an individual by the name of Fox, Fawkes, and he is a long-term rehabilitation case. So he's a big guy. He's over at our Animal Care and Rescue Center. It's likely that he's going to be deemed non-releasable, but we are still working and hoping that he is going to be able to be released and make it back into the ocean. Back to that research point, we oftentimes will even feature trackers and attach trackers with glue onto the shells of the sea turtles because they can't really feel it. It'll fall off after a year or two and we can see their movements, and man, some of them will go thousands of miles. It's really, really cool to see that this is a sea turtle that wouldn't have made it otherwise and that we were able to help. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for your answer to that. It's incredible to see all the amazing exhibits that you have there and the amazing rehabilitation work that you're doing. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time. I see that you included both a couple of live stream links into the comments. So if anyone's interested, definitely go and check